Hello everybody. Today I'd like to tell you a story. A story about a little boy called Saul, and how he went on a big adventure to become a woman. Yes, today is the 3rd anniversary of my public coming out, and to celebrate, I'd like to answer the one question I've received more than any other during my brief time here on TikTok. How did you realise you were trans? A big question with a long and complicated answer, which I'm going to give to you now. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. It all started when I was a teenager. I was your typical awkward teen, distant, introverted, with little self-confidence, and I was always very self-conscious about so many things. I hated the sound of my voice, the shape of my body, my height, my weight, my frankly enormous Adam's apple. But at the end of the day, I was a hormonal teenager, so none of this seemed particularly out of the ordinary. I also wasn't familiar with the existence of trans people at this point. I'd heard the old man trapped in a woman's body explanation, a well-intentioned but clumsy and inaccurate definition, which I'm sure we've all heard at some point in our lives. But I'd never once considered the possibility that anything like that could apply to me. And so, for most of my teenage years, I carried on as usual. The years rolled by, and in 2017, at the age of 18, I finished my secondary education and went straight into higher education at the one and only Bath Spa University. Now, I live in Doncaster, and having no close family members who could drive, moving over 150 miles to Bath was a pretty huge step. For the first time in my life, I was completely out in the cold. No friends, no family. If I wanted to get by at university, I'd have to show some backbone. Be more outgoing, more confident in myself. And I was. I made friends quite quickly, and some of my closest friends today are people I met during my very first week. I think it'd be fair to say that university transformed me. Suddenly I was more extroverted, more outgoing, more self-confident. I was still self-conscious, yes, but I'd learned not to let that get in the way of my life. In my second year, I was so self-confident that I founded the Japanese Language Society at my uni, which I'd go on to run for 2 years. By the time I graduated in 2020, I was a completely different person. Although, not in that way. We'll get there. University was also the first time in my life that I actually met trans people. There were a couple on my course, and again, some of my closest friends today are trans and non-binary people who I met while at university. Getting to know trans people personally really helped me to understand what being trans actually meant, and realise that it was far from the outdated ideas I'd previously been fed. Once again though, the very thought that my own experiences were actually quite similar to those of the trans people around me had never even crossed my mind. After university though, things started to change. I graduated university, with a bachelor's in game design in case you were wondering, in the summer of 2020, at the height of the infamous COVID-19 pandemic. And while I never contracted the virus myself, it massively impacted the course of my life. My post-university plans were very clear. I wanted to go to Japan. Just for a year or two, maybe longer, to teach English. Not only did I want to go, I was ready to go. I'd applied for a job and been accepted. I'd sent in my visa application to the Japanese embassy. The job was there, ready and waiting for me to fly out. But I couldn't. Because nobody could. And not only could I not go to Japan, I also couldn't really do anything else. Nobody was hiring. In fact, they were doing the opposite. All I could really do was sit tight and wait for it all to blow over, knowing that a job was waiting for me on the other side. Of course, by the time it all did blow over, the job was gone, and I'd burnt through most of my savings just to keep myself going. My plans were in ruins. My goal of going to Japan, which I'd had since before university, was shattered. But at the same time all of that was going on, something else was happening. It turns out, when you're forced to stay indoors for several months with nothing but your own thoughts for company, you really start to reflect on things. In March of 2020, I'd turned 21, a milestone year which I was unable to celebrate because lockdown had already begun. My teenage years were over. That adolescent phase of hormones and self-doubt was long behind me. But as I sat there, in my room, alone, day after day after day, all those feelings of self-consciousness and discomfort came flooding back in. And I realised that they'd never been away. I'd forgotten about them, sure. Buried them under layers and layers of distraction. Coursework, my social life, my long-term goals. But with all those gone, the only thing left was that pit of self-consciousness. All those thoughts and feelings that I'd previously ascribed to teen angst were still present. More than that, they were stronger. And that's when I finally began to connect the dots. All those things I hated about myself were connected. My voice, my facial hair, my Adam's apple, all typically masculine traits. I disliked my feminine features as well, but only because they were incongruous with everything else. That's when I found myself asking the one question I never imagined I would. Do I dislike being a man? Is that what all this is about? All that discomfort, all that dissatisfaction, is that the cause of it? And above all else, would I be happier if I was a woman? Now, this question was an eye-opener, to say the least. For the first time in my life, I was actually considering the possibility that I might not be who I thought I was. And that's a very scary prospect that's not often discussed in the trans community, because so many trans people already know their identities from a very young age, even if they don't have the words to express it. To have this realization later in life can be quite daunting, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. In the end, I decided there was only one way to know for sure. I'd have to put myself in a woman's shoes and see how it felt. Not literally, of course, I wouldn't buy my first pair of actual women's shoes until much later, but I did buy some makeup, and a bra, and some padding for the bra. And one afternoon, when there was nobody else home, I locked myself in the bathroom and I tried it all on. Side note, I just want to make it perfectly clear that this was not about dressing up as a woman or pretending to be a woman. This was about stepping outside my comfort zone as a man, shedding the social norms of masculinity that for so long I had tried and failed to adhere to. I am in no way suggesting that wearing makeup and fake boobs in and of itself makes me a woman, though I will admit that those things helped me to reach that conclusion. Sorry to interrupt the flow of the story, I just wanted to insert that little disclaimer. So there I was, in the bathroom, doing my makeup. And when I was finished, I took a step back to take a look at the result. I saw something that day. Something that I'd never seen before. Something that had been staring me in the face, quite literally, for 22 years. And I'd never even noticed. I looked into the mirror, and for the first time in my life, I saw myself. It wasn't the makeup. It wasn't the foundation, or the lipstick, or the fake boobs. It was my eyes. There was something in them, a certain glint that wasn't there before. If eyes truly are the windows of the soul, then I must have had the curtains closed all those years, because all of a sudden I could see right through. And in that moment, through those windows, I caught the faintest glimpse of a woman. And she was me. And that's the story of how that little boy became the woman you see before you now. Of course, the story doesn't end there. There was still the small matter of coming out to my parents, siblings and friends, my journey towards social transition, my ordeal with legal transition, and my adventures here on TikTok. But this video is already clocking in at almost 15 minutes long, so I think we'll put a bookmark in it and leave those tales for another day. Thank you all so much for watching. This is without a doubt the most important video I've ever made and possibly ever will, so I really wanted to do it justice. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider giving me a follow, and if you want to share your stories of queer awakening or coming out without TikTok's character limit getting in the way, consider joining our Discord, where we have a dedicated channel for LGBTQIA+ discussion. The video is also up on YouTube if you want to go and leave a comment over there. That's all from me for today. Thank you all so much for watching once again, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.